I meditate to feel better, or I just want to find some peace. This sounds reasonable, even appealing. After all, who wouldn't want to feel good? But what if this approach to meditation, however well-intentioned, actually misses the point? The modern view of meditation as a way to generate pleasant feelings, serenity, bliss, peace, was never meant to be an escape from unpleasant emotions or a tool to manufacture inner pleasure. It was not a technique to get from a bad state of mind to a better one. Rather, it was a path to see things as they are, directly, clearly, and without distortion. That includes seeing both pleasant and unpleasant experiences with the same steady gaze. The purpose of meditation is not to feel good. The purpose of meditation is to understand deeply. This understanding is not theoretical. It does not come from reading books or listening to lectures alone. It arises from observing one's own experience without running away from it or dressing it up. It emerges through the quiet, sometimes uncomfortable practice of sitting still and watching the truth unfold, moment after moment. It is a truth that includes boredom, restlessness, emotional pain, joy, insight, numbness. The tendency to seek only positive experiences is deeply ingrained in human nature. We are constantly driven by the impulse to pursue what feels good and avoid what feels bad. This is normal. It is part of our biological wiring, but it also creates a subtle form of bondage. When meditation is practiced with the hope of feeling good, that same habit continues beneath the surface. The desire for pleasure, the aversion to pain, the craving for calm, the fear of discomfort. Without realizing it, we bring the same patterns of grasping and avoidance into our spiritual life that already rule our daily lives. In doing so, we may experience temporary relief. If they do feel peaceful, they cling to that state and hope it lasts. If they do not, they become frustrated or discouraged. The result is a roller coaster of hope and disappointment, success and failure, all measured by how pleasant the experience was. This is not the path of freedom. This is just another version of the same old game, chasing after what we want, avoiding what we don't want, and mistaking momentary calm for transformation. True meditation goes in a different direction. It invites us to drop the agenda of feeling better and instead, to become deeply interested in what is happening right now, whatever that may be. It asks us not to fix or improve our experience, but to examine it closely and honestly. It challenges us to stop running and to start looking. It takes courage to do this. It takes patience and a willingness to be uncomfortable at times. But in this radical honesty, this shift from seeking pleasure to seeking truth is the heart of meditative practice. It is a shift that transforms not just the way we sit on the cushion, but the way we live our entire lives. When we stop using meditation as a method to escape discomfort and begin using it as a mirror to see our inner world clearly, we step into a process of profound transformation. We begin to see the patterns of craving, fear, resistance, and illusion. We begin to understand how suffering is created, not by the world, but by how we relate to it. And in that understanding, there is a release, not necessarily of pain, but of the unnecessary burden we add to pain. Not always of confusion, but of the struggle to escape confusion. Not instant bliss, but gradual freedom. It is not that pleasant feelings are bad or forbidden. They can and do arise in meditation. Sometimes, great joy, stillness, or clarity unfolds naturally, like a breeze entering an open window. These experiences can be nourishing and beautiful, but the key is not to cling to them. The point is not to sit down in search of such moments, but to be ready for whatever arises, pleasant or unpleasant, calm or chaotic. Every moment is a teacher. Every state is a doorway. Meditation is not about choosing which door you like best. It's about entering each one with awareness. In the deeper path of meditation, even pain has its place. Even boredom has value. Even confusion can become sacred. Because what matters most is not the quality of the feeling, but the quality of the seeing. Are we watching honestly? Are we present? Are we reacting? Or are we aware of the reaction? This is where insight begins, not in getting somewhere better, but in being fully here. So this is the message of this talk. Meditation is not about seeking pleasant feelings. It is about seeing the nature of experience itself. All of it. Without clinging, without resisting, without getting lost in judgment. This kind of meditation doesn't always feel good, but it always leads to truth. And the truth, once seen clearly, is what sets us free. In the sections that follow, we will explore this in greater depth. We will examine what experience is made of, how we usually react to it, and how meditation helps us step out of the cycle. We will look at the deeper teachings on mindfulness, stillness, and insight, not as abstract theories, but as practical tools for living with greater clarity and compassion. And we will return again and again to the same invitation, to stop chasing the pleasant and to start seeing what is. Because in the end, it's not about feeling better, it's about being awake. We begin to see that every experience we have is a constantly shifting process made up of different elements. There is never just one thing happening. What we call our experience is like a river made of many streams flowing together. Experience is not a fixed object. It is a dynamic event. And every event we experience has certain basic ingredients. First, there is the physical form, the body, the breath, the sounds around us, the heat or cold of the air. These are the raw sensory inputs. Then, there are feelings that arise in response, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. These are not emotions like happiness or sadness, but the basic flavor of the moment. This feels good, or this feels bad, or I don't care much about this. Alongside these feelings, the mind automatically begins to recognize and name what's happening. This is the process of perception. Then come mental habits and reactions. Thoughts like, I want more of this, or I wish this would stop, or this is boring, or what am I doing wrong? All these movements together, sensation, feeling, recognition, reaction, create the experience we know in each moment. The mood transforms. Even consciousness itself, the awareness of what is happening, does not stay steady like a spotlight, but flickers and flows depending on what we pay attention to. We try to avoid or get rid of the bad ones. We try to stay neutral in the boring ones. This constant effort to manage experience is the root of so much inner struggle. Meditation begins by turning toward this process with honest attention. It means sitting quietly and watching how experience actually happens. Not how we want it to happen, not how we think it should happen, but how it really unfolds. We watch how the body feels, how the breath moves, how the mind reacts. We begin to notice how much of our life is spent chasing what feels good, avoiding what feels bad, or spacing out when we feel nothing. And slowly, we start to realize something important. This is the heart of insight meditation, to see clearly that pain is pain, pleasure is pleasure, and both are part of life. We don't need to reject or cling to either. We just need to understand them as they are. At the core of every experience is one simple thing: feeling, not emotion, not thought, not judgment, just the basic tone of whether something feels pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. This is the silent background of every moment. You touch a warm cup of tea, that's pleasant. You hear a harsh sound, that's unpleasant. You sit still and feel nothing much at all, that's neutral. These basic feelings are always present, whether we're aware of them or not. Meditation teaches us to notice these feelings directly. Why? Because they are the starting point of craving and resistance. Every time something pleasant arises, the mind immediately wants to hold on to it. It says, this is nice, stay here. When something unpleasant comes, the mind says, no, get rid of this. And when something neutral shows up, we often drift into boredom or distraction without even noticing. So, in a way, our entire psychological life revolves around these three simple reactions: craving, aversion, and indifference. We chase pleasure, we fight pain, and we ignore what seems unimportant. These reactions are so fast and automatic that we usually don't even notice them. But they are at the root of most of our stress and suffering. Let's take the example of a pleasant feeling. Maybe the quiet joy that comes when the mind settles for a moment. If we're not careful, that pleasant feeling becomes something we try to repeat or control. We sit again the next day hoping for the same joy. If it comes, we are satisfied. If it doesn't, we feel frustrated. And so, even something wholesome like joy becomes the object of craving. Now imagine an unpleasant feeling, perhaps physical discomfort or emotional restlessness during meditation. Because they don't grab our attention, we often fall into dullness, sleepiness, or wandering mind. But neutrality is not absence. It's a chance to see subtlety. It's where real patience and equanimity are developed. In learning to stay with moments that feel like nothing, we discover a quiet depth. So why does this matter? Because the way we relate to these basic feelings shapes everything. If we can begin to observe them without immediately reacting, if we can let pleasant be pleasant, painful be painful, and neutral be neutral, then something shifts. The grip of craving loosens. The cycle of stress starts to dissolve. We no longer live at the mercy of how we feel. This doesn't mean we become cold or passive. It means we develop a deeper kind of presence. A presence that welcomes every kind of feeling, not because they are all enjoyable, but because they are all part of what it means to be alive. Every feeling is a messenger. Every moment is a mirror. And the job of meditation is to listen, to receive each one without clinging or pushing away. This is why meditation is not about pleasant feelings. Because when we chase what feels good, there is a natural tendency in the human mind to seek comfort and avoid discomfort. It's a survival instinct. It's part of how we've evolved as a species to move toward pleasure, which often signals safety or nourishment, and to move away from pain, which often signals danger. But in meditation, this instinct often becomes a hidden trap. The process begins the moment a feeling arises, whether it's pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Immediately, without conscious decision, the mind moves. It grasps at the pleasant, pushes away the unpleasant, or zones out in the neutral. This movement is what we call craving. It is not limited to obvious desires like craving for food, attention, or success. It is much more subtle. It is the tiny tension that says, I like this, or I don't want this, or this is boring. It is the silent resistance to how things are. In the context of meditation, this craving can appear in many forms. It may be a craving for peace, to finally feel calm after a stressful day. It may be a craving for progress, to feel like something important is happening during the sit. It may be a craving for a repeat of a previous session that felt blissful. Even the desire to do it right can be a form of craving. And each time craving enters the mind, it takes us away from direct observation. We are no longer with the breath, the body, or the present moment. We are caught in a mental story about what should be happening instead. When the mind meets something unpleasant, craving turns into aversion. This is still a kind of craving. It's just the craving for the unpleasant thing to go away. You feel a sharp pain in your back or a wave of restlessness in your chest. Immediately, the mind tightens, resists, and labels it as a problem. Then comes the inner dialogue. This shouldn't be here. I must adjust. I need to stop this. Again, we are no longer observing. We are reacting. And every reaction strengthens the illusion that peace lies elsewhere, somewhere other than right here, right now. Neutral experiences, though they seem harmless, can also trigger subtle forms of craving. The mind doesn't like boredom. It doesn't enjoy sitting with nothing happening. So it wanders. It fantasizes. It searches for stimulation. In these moments, it turns meditation into a search for the good stuff and a battle against the bad stuff. But the truth is, there is no good or bad stuff. There is only experience. And every experience holds the same potential for understanding if we meet it without craving. When we stop running toward or away, we begin to see things as they are. We begin to study the nature of joy, pain, stillness, and restlessness without being trapped by them. This is why noticing craving is itself a breakthrough. When we observe the craving to feel good, the resistance to feeling bad, or the boredom with feeling nothing, we start to see the patterns that rule our mind. And when we see them, we don't have to obey them. Maybe there's a lightness, a soft glow in the heart, a sense of spaciousness. These moments can feel magical, and there's nothing wrong with them. They are part of the natural unfolding of the mind when it becomes still and present. The problem arises when we start to chase these states. The human mind loves pleasure, even spiritual pleasure. And once it tastes a peaceful or joyful moment in meditation, it naturally wants to return to it. That was a good sit, we think, hoping to get back to that beautiful place. But in doing so, we have already left the present moment. We are no longer open and curious. We are clinging, wanting more of what feels good and less of what doesn't. And this subtle grasping can create frustration, disappointment, and doubt when those peaceful states don't arise. We begin to judge our meditation sessions by how they feel, not by how clearly we're seeing. Even more importantly, pleasant states are not permanent. They arise based on conditions, like a calm body, a rested mind, or a quiet environment. When those conditions change, the states disappear. And if we've built our idea of good meditation around those states, we suffer. It was to understand the nature of all feelings, including the desire to have certain ones. There is also a hidden danger in becoming attached to peaceful states. They can become a new identity. We may think, I'm someone who can go deep in meditation, or I've touched something special. This sense of spiritual achievement can quietly feed the ego. It creates a subtle pride or superiority, or the fear of losing what we've gained. And again, we are trapped, not by the outer world, but by our relationship to inner experience. The truth is, peaceful states can be useful. They help stabilize the mind. They make it easier to observe clearly. But they are not the goal. The goal is understanding. And sometimes the deepest understanding comes not in peace, but in restlessness, not in joy, but in pain, not when everything feels right, but when nothing feels certain. So how do we work with this? We learn to welcome pleasant states without clinging to them. We enjoy them when they arise, but we don't demand them. We treat them as visitors, beautiful, nourishing, but impermanent. We use them to deepen awareness, not as proof of success. And when they pass, as all things do, we return to the simple practice of watching. This is how we step out of the trap. We stop measuring our meditation by how we feel and start valuing it by how awake we are. We stop clinging to pleasure and start being present with whatever arises. And slowly, moment by moment, we shift from seeking comfort to discovering truth. When people speak about mindfulness today, it is often described as being present or paying attention. While this captures part of the picture, it leaves out something essential. In its deeper meaning, mindfulness is not just being aware of what's happening. It's being aware with the purpose of understanding. It is the steady, non-reactive observation of what's going on within us and around us, so that we begin to see how experience truly works. It is attention combined with interest, patience, and the courage to face reality as it is, not as we would like it to be. The practice of mindfulness includes observing the body, feelings, mental states, and the deeper patterns that shape our behavior. These are not random categories. They point directly to how suffering is created and how it can be ended. First, we learn to notice the body as it is. Breathing, sitting, moving, aching, relaxing. We don't try to make the body feel a certain way. We don't reject discomfort or cling to ease. We simply observe the body with openness. Then we turn to our feelings, the simple sense of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral in each moment. This is where much of our inner struggle begins. By noticing these reactions with mindfulness, we create space. We stop the automatic habits of chasing or resisting. We start to see the raw feeling before the mind turns it into a story. From there, we begin to notice the states of mind that come and go: restlessness, clarity, dullness, joy, sadness. Instead of being pushed around by these states, we learn to watch them. The ability to be aware of what the mind is doing without being pulled into its every motion. Finally, we observe the deeper patterns and principles, the way thoughts, emotions, and actions arise based on conditions. We begin to see how anger arises not out of nowhere, but from irritation, which came from discomfort, which came from expectation. Without judgment, without distraction. This is why mindfulness is so central to meditation. It's not a side technique. It's the foundation of the whole path. Without mindfulness, we simply react to experience. We try to feel good and avoid feeling bad. But with mindfulness, we learn to stay. We learn to see. And in that seeing, the roots of confusion begin to loosen. We start to understand not just what we feel, but why we suffer and how we don't have to. This kind of awareness is gentle, but it's also powerful. The breath stands out as one of the most simple and profound. It is always with us. It costs nothing. It doesn't require any belief or effort to find. And yet, if we pay attention to it with care, it becomes a powerful mirror for the mind. This is why so many meditation practices begin with the breath, not as a way to relax, but as a way to come home. The breath is not just a background process. It reflects the state of the body and the mind in real time. When we're anxious, the breath shortens. When we're calm, it softens. When we're trying too hard, it becomes tight. When we let go, it flows naturally. So watching the breath is not about forcing it to be a certain way. It's about getting to know ourselves more deeply. Each inhale and exhale becomes a chance to see what's really going on beneath the surface. In meditation, using the breath means sitting quietly and noticing how it feels to breathe. Where do you feel it most clearly? In the nose, the chest, the belly? Is it fast or slow, shallow or deep? We don't change the breath, we simply meet it. And in that meeting, the mind starts to settle. Not because we make it settle, but because we are no longer running or chasing. We are simply here. But more than calming the mind, the breath teaches us about change. No breath stays for long. Each one arises, stays for a moment, and disappears. This is the rhythm of life. Everything is like this. Every sensation, every thought, every emotion, arising and passing, moment by moment. By watching the breath, we begin to understand this truth in a direct way. Impermanence is no longer a theory, it's something we feel in our bones. The breath also reveals our tendencies. When a peaceful breath arises, do we grasp at it? When the breath becomes rough, do we resist? When nothing special happens, do we lose interest? These reactions are the same ones that show up in the rest of our life. How we relate to the breath is how we relate to everything. And so, staying with the breath becomes a deep training in presence, patience, and equanimity. Some people ask, why spend so much time on something so simple? But simplicity is what makes the breath powerful. It doesn't entertain us. It doesn't distract us. It simply is. And because it is so basic, it leaves space for everything else to become visible. Our thoughts, our emotions, our reactions. It teaches us to stay, not to run toward what feels good or away from what feels bad, but to remain open and awake, here and now. This is the heart of meditation. And the breath, quiet and humble, guides us there, not by force, but by showing us the nature of all experience, always changing, never owned, and deeply worthy of our attention. Stillness is not simply the absence of movement. It is a quality of presence, a deep settling of the heart and mind. In meditation, stillness is not something we force or create. It is something we discover, something that naturally arises when we stop chasing after thoughts and stop running away from discomfort. It comes when we stop trying to get somewhere, when we let go of the need to become something other than what we already are. Silence is often misunderstood. It's not just the lack of sound, but the quieting of inner noise, the endless commentary, judgment, and desire that fills our minds most of the time. This silence is not empty or dull. In fact, it is full of life. It is the silence in which everything becomes more vivid. In stillness, a breath is not just a breath, it's a whole world. A sound is not just a sound, it's a doorway to presence. Stillness and silence are not goals, but invitations. They are invitations to drop beneath the surface of life, to stop reacting and start observing. When we sit in stillness, we begin to feel the undercurrent of constant movement in the mind. At first, this can be uncomfortable. We might feel bored or restless, wanting to move, speak, think, or escape. But if we stay, something changes. The restlessness doesn't go away all at once, but we learn not to follow it. We see that it comes and goes, and in the space it leaves behind, clarity grows. In stillness, we become aware of how much energy we spend avoiding discomfort. We see how we reach for distraction, for noise, for stimulation. But in silence, these habits are exposed. We face ourselves as we are. And this is where real transformation begins, not in adding something new, but in letting go of what is unnecessary. Stillness is not passive. It's not about zoning out or becoming numb. True stillness is alert, awake, and deeply sensitive. It allows us to see things we normally miss, the tiny shifts in thought, the flicker of an emotion, the moment when clinging begins. It's like standing still in a forest. At first, everything seems quiet, but as your senses open, you begin to notice the subtle life all around. The rustle of leaves, the chirp of a bird, the pattern of light and shadow. The stillness reveals what was always there. In the same way, when the mind becomes still, we begin to see the deeper truths of experience. We see that thoughts arise and pass like clouds in the sky. We see that feelings come and go like waves on the sea. We see that even our sense of self, the one who is meditating, is not solid or fixed. It, too, is a process, always changing. And here, something profound happens. We stop identifying so tightly with our passing moods and roles. We begin to experience a spaciousness in which life unfolds freely, without the constant pressure to fix, control, or judge. This spaciousness is healing. It softens the edges of suffering. It makes room for compassion, for understanding, and for a peace that does not depend on everything going our way. Stillness is not something we find once and keep forever. It is something we return to again and again. And each time we return, we go deeper. Each time we rest in silence, we remember that beneath all the noise of the world, there is a quiet presence that cannot be disturbed. It has always been there. It is our true home. Perhaps the most important insight that meditation brings is the truth of change. Everything changes. Every breath, every thought, every sensation, nothing stays the same for long. This may sound obvious, but we rarely live as if it were true. We cling to what we like, hoping it will last. We resist what we dislike, hoping it will go away. And in this struggle, we suffer. Meditation offers a different way. Instead of fighting change, we learn to observe it. We sit, breathe, and watch. We feel the body shift and the mind wander. We notice emotions rising like waves and falling away. We see how even moments of stillness move. Nothing holds still, not even peace. And in this honest observation, something begins to shift in us. We stop taking things so personally. We stop assuming that what we feel right now is who we really are. Impermanence becomes not just a concept, but a lived experience. We see it directly. The ache in the knee that felt unbearable a moment ago disappears on its own. The joy we felt while breathing calmly fades without warning. A wave of sadness comes, stays for a time, and then passes. When we really look, we see that every part of our experience is moving, flowing, dissolving. This seeing is powerful. It opens the door to letting go. Why cling to what cannot stay? Why fight what is already leaving? When we understand impermanence deeply, we stop trying to hold the river still. We begin to float with it, to dance with the changing rhythm of life. This doesn't mean we stop caring or stop feeling. It means we stop suffering when things change, because we no longer expect them to be permanent. We also begin to understand that pain, too, is impermanent. This is a great relief. That knot in the chest, that heavy feeling of loneliness, that tight grip of anxiety, they all pass. Even when they seem solid, even when they feel endless, they change. And knowing this gives us strength. We can stay with pain without being overwhelmed, because we know it will not last. But there's more. When we see impermanence clearly, we also begin to question the idea of a fixed self. If everything in our experience is changing, what exactly are we clinging to when we say I? Is this body the same as it was 10 years ago? Are these thoughts the same as yesterday? Is this feeling who we truly are? Or is it just passing through? Meditation invites us to live these questions, not to answer them with philosophy, but to observe and see for ourselves. And the more we observe, the more we realize that peace does not come from trying to make things permanent. It comes from learning to rest in the flow. It comes from trusting that whatever arises, we can meet it, and whatever passes, we can let it go. This understanding is not cold or distant. It brings warmth and compassion, because when we see how fleeting life is, we hold things more gently. We appreciate each moment more deeply. We stop waiting for life to be perfect and start being present for it as it is. In this way, impermanence is not something to fear. It is the very condition that makes freedom possible. By now, it becomes clear that meditation is not what many people first imagine it to be. It is not a technique to escape discomfort. It is not a trick to control the mind or suppress emotions. It is not a path toward constant pleasure or eternal calm. Meditation, in its deepest sense, is a way of seeing. It is a shift in how we relate to experience. It is a willingness to meet life as it is, not as we wish it to be. This shift is subtle at first. In the beginning, most people meditate with a hidden desire to feel better, to be more peaceful, to stop thinking so much. These wishes are not wrong. They are very human. But if we cling to them, they become obstacles. Because eventually, meditation will not always make us feel better. It will, at times, make us more aware of pain, of sadness, of fear. And if we believe that something is going wrong because we don't feel good, we might quit. We might say, meditation isn't working. But what if we asked a different question? Not, how do I feel? But what am I learning? Not, how do I stop this feeling? But what is this feeling made of? When we make this shift, meditation becomes something else entirely. It becomes a mirror, one that reflects not only the mind's habits, but also the patterns of suffering that shape our lives. It shows us how we run, how we cling, how we resist. But it also shows us that none of these patterns are fixed. They are conditions, not prisons. They arise based on causes, and they can end. And this is the doorway to freedom. A new understanding of meditation means letting go of the idea that we are here to succeed at something. There is no perfect state to reach, no special experience to achieve. There is only the present moment, sometimes calm, sometimes chaotic, sometimes joyful, sometimes painful, but always alive, always rich, always offering something real. A kind of stillness that doesn't depend on external conditions. This stillness does not mean we are free from problems. It means we are no longer enslaved by them. We are no longer chasing what cannot be held or fleeing what cannot be avoided. We are resting in the truth of change, of uncertainty, of life as it is. This is not a passive peace. It is not indifference. On the contrary, it is a peace that sees clearly. It sees the suffering in ourselves and in others, and it moves with compassion. It speaks truth when needed. But a way we live. We learn to pause in the middle of our day, to breathe before reacting, to feel instead of escaping. We become more honest, more open, more kind. Not because we are trying to be spiritual, but because we are no longer running from experience. And slowly, this way of being begins to shape our lives. Relationships become less about control and more about connection. Work becomes less about proving something and more about serving something meaningful. Even ordinary moments, washing dishes, walking to the store, waiting in line, become part of our path. Nothing is outside the field of awareness. Everything becomes a teacher. This is the gift of meditation. Not that it changes what happens, but that it changes how we see what happens. It gives us back our life, not as we imagined it, but as it truly is, fragile, fleeting, and beautiful in its imperfection. And it invites us to meet this life with eyes open, heart open, mind steady. Not needing every moment to feel good, but ready to be present for whatever arises. This is the freedom that does not depend on pleasure. This is the joy that grows from seeing clearly. In the end, meditation is not about escaping the world. It is about waking up within it. It is about remembering what we already know deep down. That peace is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of understanding. That joy is not something we chase, but something that appears when we stop running. And that wisdom is not in lofty ideas, but in learning to see, moment by moment, the simple truth of what is.